our next speaker, Alex Hunter, is a company incubator, angel investor, and branding expert. He's the CEO of Rushmore, which has been described as a beautiful new music ecosystem. And at Virgin America, where he used to work, he used the web to build a grassroots marketing campaign for Virgin America's certification process, which had a tight schedule and even tighter budget. His success led him to becoming global head of online marketing for the Virgin Group, curating the brand's global digital strategy, which was incredibly successful. And today he's going to be talking about generating not just new customers, but loyal customers as well, who love the brand and evangelize. Now, this guy, in 3 months, by the way, lost 23 kilos. Not that I like to comment on people's weight usually, but he was 107 kilos, so he was a big chap. But data and technology within 3 months allowed him to shed quite a lot of weight. Yes, 23 kilos. So a new, fit, agile Alex Hunter to the stage. Let's welcome Alex Hunter. Nice to see you. Oh, you are? He is looking fit, isn't he?
How the hell am I supposed to follow that? One of the most preeminent theoretical physicists in the world, and me, who can barely tie his shoelaces. Like, seriously, like when my son, hey, Dad, what's x plus y? I'm like, oh, x plus y. Siri, what's x plus y? I'll do my best. So what I want to spend some time talking about today is not Rushmore. You got an introduction to that, rushmore.fm, if you want to check it out. I want to talk today about standing out. How do you elevate yourself above this massively noisy marketplace? What can you do to punch above your weight, to appear bigger than you actually are, yet remain agile and real enough to have meaningful relationships with your customers and your future customers? You have an extraordinary amount of work to do to be able to do this. The marketplace has never been more crowded. You will start or launch your product on Monday, and by Friday you're going to have a competitor. That's just the reality of the game. The cost of starting a business has never been lower. The frameworks and infrastructure that we have to do that type of thing is readily available. That makes life much, much easier. So we have to work incredibly hard to make that happen. Why? Well, fundamentally, the landscape of business has changed. I'm no futurist, but I do like looking at the history of business. And in the past, it used to be super, super easy for business to advertise. They would put up a billboard or a TV commercial saying whatever the hell they wanted. And we had no mechanism to feed back or ask questions or anything like that. So they did say whatever the hell they wanted, to the point where it got ridiculous. These are all real ads from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Basically, smoke cigarettes and you'll get healthier. We don't even let cigarette companies advertise anymore. Could you imagine if one of them did this? We would destroy them. We would run them out of business in a matter of days. You mean a woman can open it? That's a feature. That was billed as a feature. Could you imagine if like Facebook were like, oh, you connect with your friends, it's easy to use, and women can use it? We would go, no. That's a real ad. For my nerds in the room, you mean this is a computer? And the single greatest strapline in advertising history, you bet your sweet telex operator it is. They got away with whatever they wanted. This is my all-time favorite. I have this framed in my office. Blow in her face and she'll follow you anywhere. Ladies, is that true? They are no longer in business. Now look, if you don't believe a brand, you will believe legendary American comedian Bob Hope in one of the creepiest pictures I've ever seen in my life. And if Bob says smoke Chesterfield cigarettes, you're going to smoke Chesterfield cigarettes. But if for some reason you don't believe Bob Hope, then you will believe your doctor. And if your doctor tells little Timmy there to smoke Camel cigarettes, little Timmy's going to smoke Camel cigarettes. You know, it's weird. That particular ad gets very mixed reactions. Some people are like, oh, that's so sad. Timmy's going to die. I'm like, Timmy's already dead. This is from the 1940s. Lighten up. So the message here is, now, in the real world, creating a product and just putting it out in the world, not good enough. Not by a long shot. You have so much more creation that you need to do. And we've heard a lot about thinkers and makers. I'm a big proponent of creation across the spectrum of brand. And here's what I mean. I think the most important thing to creating enduring brand loyalty is to create emotion. Why? You need to feel something. You need to experience something. It is far easier to have a loyal relationship when you have an emotional response to anything, be it a brand, a message, a politician, a family member, your dog. You feeling something is what sells. You as the creator of that product. Ultimately, emotion, when you want somebody to do something, buy something in this case, or vote or whatever, emotion is far more powerful than logic and reason and practicalities. Because reason, and Dr. Donald Kane, who's a preeminent kind of neuroscientist, crystallized this beautifully by saying that reason ultimately leads to conclusion and emotion leads to action. So to get people to do something, vote for a politician, buy toilet paper, your brand of toilet paper, you have to connect with them on an emotional level, right? What do I mean by that? Well, let me ask you guys a question. What brand do you love? What product and service do you use every single day that gives you a warm, fuzzy feeling? What product or service or brand could you not live without? Shout, give them to me. Apple, okay, oh, that's an easy one. Keep going. Lego. Brought to you by Lego. I did this once and someone was like, beer. Their heart was in the right place. Mine is Diet Coke. There's absolutely nothing better to me in this entire world than a cool, crisp, refreshing can of Diet Coke. No, they're not paying me. But I know that no matter where I go in the world, it's going to taste exactly the same. It's going to hit the spot. I am 100% brand loyal to Diet Coke. So much so that if I go to a bar or a restaurant and the waiter or waitress says, would Diet Pepsi be okay? It's like they've spit on my grandmother. No, it's not okay. I want a freaking Diet Coke. And then you think about it for a second, you're like, oh my God, I have this emotional, passionate response to poison in a tin can. It should be easy for you to create that same sense of brand. And the dirty secret that everybody knows that no one talks about, Coke and Pepsi, they're the same thing. But I won't go to places that serve Pepsi because in my mind it's gross, but it's the same thing. You need to understand that you can create that level of brand loyalty and emotion. If they can do it, you can do it. The easiest step to take when you leave this room is to go back to your organization and create positivity. In other words, don't be an asshole. Don't create negativity. Be an aspirational brand. Be a brand that people want to be associated with. And that starts at the top because that type of thing is very contagious. Emotion, one way or the other. If your leadership team are a bunch of jerks, that is not going to make your employees feel good. That's not going to make your customers feel good. The challenge is, it's easy to be a dick, right? It's the laziest of emotions. It's the default setting for humanity, sadly. And as a society, we tune in the millions, literally in the millions, to watch these reality shows where people stand on stage and fall over their own tongues, exploiting the only tangible talent that they think they have. And why do we watch these shows? Is it for the heartwarming, uplifting stories of success? No. It's for the categoric failures. We love that shit. We love watching people fail, just because we're just kind of a bunch of dicks. But you can reject that thinking in your organizations, and I guarantee it will transform the relationship that you have with your customers because it will permeate through whatever you do. So reject that notion entirely. And here's why I think it's also important in the product creation phase. It gives you a sense of optimism, and optimism is the most potent ingredient to creating ideas and innovating. This is a quote from Johnny Ive, the design god at Apple. He was asked why he chose to work in the Bay Area in California. And he said, because there's such a healthy respect for ideas, the fragility and beauty of ideas, and the importance of ideas. And he said this, I think that a sense of inquisitiveness and the willingness to try is so important for design, for developing those tentative, fragile ideas into a real product. That's a cultural thing at an organizational level that you can go back and create today, and the results will astound you. The next most important thing that is often overlooked is creating and embracing your community. And that's a very loose, wishy-washy word, but let me give you an example of how powerful this can be. And this is a real-world example of a tiny little brand that none of you have ever heard of. When I first moved to London several years ago, there was a very small burrito shop, I'll talk about what that means in a minute, that was really struggling to get people through the door. They had absolute confidence in their product, but they chose to open a restaurant in the worst time in human history to start a restaurant. 2008, beginning of the financial crisis, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, they're like, right, we got to do something to get people in the door. Let's have the UK's first burrito eating competition. And £10 to enter, all the money goes to charity, advertised exclusively on social media. And let me show you how fun this can be. This is a blogger from one of the big national newspapers in the UK. And a burrito, if you're not familiar with it, it's like a wrap filled with meat, cheese, vegetables, and rice, about the size of a baby. And the challenge was to see how quickly you could eat it, not how many you could eat, because that would be just gross. And here he is. He's ready. He's in this to win this. There's the burrito. And he's, all of us, from the get-go, it just goes horribly wrong. Oh no. He did not win. My brother won. My brother is the UK burrito eating champion. We're all very proud of him. At Rushmore, when a new user comes on board, I send them a letter. I handwrite a letter to every single one of our users. Just a quick note that says, hey, thank you so much for coming on board and helping us make this an awesome place to be a music fan. I know it's not scalable, don't look at me like that, but it means a lot to our users and it means a lot to me. And we get so much these are all taken from Twitter, these aren't pictures that we've taken. And we get messages like this that say, I knew Rushmore was cool when they offered to send stickers, but they sent them airmail all the way from the UK. It's like, what? We're going to send them by pigeon. But it's important to us, and we have feverishly loyal users. So just that moment, that 30 seconds it takes us to write a letter, makes such a difference in our users' day. Failure. Let's talk about failure. You know, failure is very sexy. Failure is really important to grow your business. Yeah, it's just not. This is the stupidest idea I have heard since I became a professional marketing douchebag. Failure is the most overrated concept in business in the last 20 years. And you're all looking at me like, oh, you can't say that. Failure is important. Nope, nope, nope. Failure is a complete waste of time and energy. And the worst part about it is, for the last 3 or 4 years, it's been sexified. There's this cult of failure. These are my 2 favorite magazines in the entire world. I lick the pages just to get more information out of them. They are and these issues came out at the same time. And I was like, why are you doing this? It's just not true. It's just not true. Failure is not important. You can reject it entirely. And this is my theory, is that The proponents of this are failures themselves, and they just don't know how to deal with it. So like, oh no, dude. It's okay that our 50 million venture capital is gone because we have to fail before we succeed, so we're going to be fine. I know venture capitalists that won't invest in founders who haven't been through a failure. That sounds like a shitty way of doing business, but it's true. And it's gone kind of guardrail to guardrail. This is from a direct quote from the CEO of a very famous web company. As an entrepreneur, you have to get used to failure. It's just part of the path to success. What does that even mean? That's like saying, oh, to go forwards, you have to go backwards. That's pretty shitty advice. I don't agree with that at all. The problem is we've started to use it as a coping mechanism. I know a lot of you are looking at that after last night going, oh. Failure is not a coping mechanism. Failure is turned into this bastardized philosophy. Now, the worst part about it is it started in a very pure and positive and important notion, which is learn from your mistakes. That's reasonably valuable. Now, I think, and I know a lot of other people think, that there's something more valuable than failing. Anybody know what it might be? Not failing. Otherwise known as success. The data that you get from succeeding is a lot more valuable than the data that you get from failing. There's a movie, a really obscure movie, where and there's a scene with two homeless guys sitting on a park bench, and one of them is blind. And the blind guy is doing a Rubik's Cube. And he turns it once and he goes, "Is that it? No. Is that it? No. Is that it? No." That's what it's like, going, oh, well, that didn't work. Let's try again. Oh, well, that doesn't work. The worst part about this is it has made people inadvertently afraid of risk. Do you think that the guys that invented this would have done this if they thought they had to fail before they succeeded? No, they would not have. They had faith in their product. They knew it was going to work. They did their frickin' research. And then they jumped off a cliff with a sleeping bag attached to them. Do not be afraid of risk. Don't let this idea of failure infect you. As a good friend of mine and a brilliant technologist, Joe Stump, said, failure is a tool, not a badge of honor. We don't wear failure with pride. Let's not glorify it. This is something that gets overlooked often by technology companies who have the computing power and the intelligence to not overlook it, creating a personalized and relevant experience. There is a hotel in New York that I first went to in 2007. When I arrived, I filled out the form, passport, address, email, and at the bottom it said, "What are your favorite snacks?" I was like, okay, that's a little weird, but okay. Cookies and Diet Coke, obviously. I paid and went upstairs, and by the time I got to my hotel room, there was a handwritten note, a basket of my favorite snacks, and a fridge full of Diet Coke. I am never staying in another hotel again when I go to New York. And every time I go back, the same things are waiting for me with a little message saying, hey, if you want to change it, let us know, but we know how much you love Diet Coke because we follow you on Twitter. So I fly Virgin Atlantic a lot, not because I used to work for their kind of parent company, but because they're a good airline and they go where I need to fly. I fly so much that I have the top tier status with them. But I often fly in the cheap seats, not in the pointy end of the airplane. But no matter what, if I'm in 78K aisle seat next to a screaming baby, the in-flight service manager will always come and find me and say, hey, Alex, not Mr. Hunter, not Sir, not frequent flyer F974Q42, Alex, because that's what I've told them I want to be, and they give me a glass of champagne. I don't even like champagne, but I'm going to drink that shit because I know where it came from. The data and let's be completely honest here. From a pure physical product perspective, Virgin Atlantic Emirates, Singapore Airlines, Cathay, can they even compete on product? No, but they can use what they know about me to create delight, which keeps me coming back over and over again. And the nice thing is, these patterns of use, of individual use, you'll start to see patterns emerging. And I use the air traffic control metaphor. This is a day's worth of air traffic in Europe. Because every single one of those dots has an individual request which needs to be handled in real time, interpreted, acted upon, and passed on to the next link in the chain for fulfillment. In real time, hundreds of thousands of times a day across the planet. If they can do it with something that's going 600 miles an hour, 6 miles above the earth, we can do it with an order for something completely innocuous and pointless that we've just spent our money on. Now, from a pure business perspective, and this is what this is all about, remember that that data that you're gathering creates those individual experiences. And those individual experiences will lead to increased conversion because you're talking sensibly to the right person at the right time, repeat business because you've made someone's life easier, and ancillary revenue, so revenue coming from peripheral experiences outside of the direct product. All good business metrics. Anyone know what that is? That's a thermostat, okay? It was created by the guy that was in charge of the iPod at Apple. And you think, okay, thermostats are boring, beige boxes that sit on the wall, cost us a lot of money, and we occasionally whack our arm on when we walk past them. And this is my rebuttal to anybody that tells me, you can't make my industry sexy. Yeah, they made thermostats sexy. The whole thing is you want to go up and touch it. You know, it's like, I want to fiddle with it. I want to just like lick it and, you know, touch. And that's the whole point. But the genius thing about it is, it learns. It learns your habits and your patterns and your behavior and ultimately saves you money. And it's completely beautiful. You look at that thing and go, when I just told you it was a thermostat, like, wow, that's amazing. You have to create magic. This is Arthur C. Clarke, the science fiction author, who said any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And this is relative, right? I use Uber all the time. But when I showed my dad the app, and he's like, the little car is moving. And I was like, yeah, it's actually coming towards us. He's like, pff, unbelievable. So magic is relative, but that's the sense that we have to create. Even if you have the most boring, mundane SaaS application, if your application means I can go to lunch half an hour early, you are God. So this can be applied to any industry in any vertical. The consistency of brand communication is another thing that gets overlooked. And this, if you listen to anything that I say, please make it this section. I was taught this, quite frankly. I was one of the first employees at Virgin America, long before we ever had any airplanes, no license to fly, nothing. We had a few of us around a table, and that was basically it. I was fortunate enough to be a part of the definition of the Virgin America brand. The mission for Virgin America, and I hope that you've all gone through this exercise, was to create an airline people love. Why? Because that was deemed sufficiently impossible. You're going to create an American airline that people... How many of you have flown domestically within the United States? Right, so you know it's like slamming your hand in a car door over and over again. It's an awful experience. So people are like, okay, that's exactly what we're going to do. Now, you could argue that we could beat this, which is the state of the American domestic market, with this. That's the inside of a Virgin America airplane. Wi-Fi, mood lighting, touchscreen TV, order your food on the screen, live TV, yada, yada, yada. But the thing that we learned, and we always reminded ourselves, is that we had to imagine the airplane like this. Empty, nothing, nada. Because that is the last part of the customer journey, right? They have to go through so many steps before they get to experience the complete and total awesomeness of the airplane. They had to go online, search for a flight, put in all their information, pay for it, go to the airport, check in, go through security, board, and get on the airplane before they got to experience this. If any one of those points had been less than stellar, this could have been even better. Not possible. And they still would have hated it. And they should. They should have been able to feel like they hadn't been let down. So what we did was this. Out of that mission to create an airline people love, we identified 7 values. Doesn't matter what they were. It was the exercise that was important. And then we identified every single point at which a customer or potential customer could interact with us. And this is obviously just a very small subset of them. And we made sure that those brand values, and at the very least the mission, was reflected in that point, that touch point. Because no matter how much you map customer journeys, they're not going to adhere to them. They're just not. That's not how it works anymore. So even if someone just saw a retweet from somebody they'd never met from Virgin America, they would understand at the highest level what we were trying to achieve. Now you'll notice a lot of those are people. People are notoriously and irritatingly inconsistent. You cannot spec them and build them into your own design. But they are a crucial part of running an airline. So we went through every single person in the organization from the CEO down. When you were first hired, you went through a full day brand induction. Not work induction, not HR induction, branding. We call it the brand bath. Total immersion. You were broken down as a human being to just understand the essence and psychology of brand, how it affects you on an emotional level, what we were trying to achieve, what the Virgin Mother brand was trying to achieve, and built back up again. And what does it have now? Extraordinarily consistent brand behavior from the most important assets in a business, the people. That was the best investment beyond the technology, anything like that Virgin America ever made. So I want to end with this very brief message that the only way that you can succeed is if you work hard, you continue to stay positive, and you actually go out and build something. Thanks for your time, guys.
Fantastic. Sadly, no time for questions, but that was fantastic.
No worries.
Alex Hunter, he was here last year at Innovation on a panel with Terry Leahy. We've got a gift for you, for all our speakers. Once more to Alex, and I think that message of positivity, creating a wow. And Alex, I'm with you on that one. We hone in too much on failure when we should be thinking about success. And I think there's a bit of a movement now to start looking at the successes and learn from that. That's something that I've taken on board over the last year, because we used to highlight the failures so much and what we could learn from them. And that really is that shift. So I think, especially for the CE market, if that's something you can take away from Alex's presentation, is that move to learning from successes, and it will really empower your business. Once more, Alex, everybody, thank you very much to Alex Hunter.